Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the At the Pylon podcast. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. Chandler, we are back here in the calm before the storm. The NFL draft just 1 week away from today. And I guess leading into that, not only what are your overall thoughts heading into that, emotions, I guess, but how have you been over this past week and a half since we last met?
Yeah, we've been doing great. I finished Ted Lasso for the fifth time.
W?
Ted dropped an album last night, which ended up being a double album, so it's 31 songs. Talk about prolific.
Damn.
Um, and this is obviously a football reference because of Travis Kelce. There is a song that I think is all about Travis Kelce, which is nice. Um, but yeah, we're doing great. But as for the Patriots, I am horrified. Everything that comes out scares me so much because it's always possible that this is just them trying to throw people off the scent, but also you're at pick three. Why are you trying to throw people off the scent? Just say you want to take Drake May, please, please. Don't
Literally.
that we will talk about through the course of this episode. Don't scare me. My heart can't take it.
There has been a slew of rumors and etc. coming out of the Patriots for this past week and a half. And our past couple episodes have been very focused on, mock drafts and stuff like that. We thought we kind of reel it back in before next week. We submit our final mock drafts and thoughts before the drafts next week. But regardless, it's a good opportunity to kind of survey the scene and see what the Patriots exactly have in store for them just a week out from the NFL draft. And the main thing, Chandler, that we'll touch on today outside of draft rumors is the big story that dropped yesterday. That's how we'll start off. Bill Belichick, as we know, not employed heading into the 2024-25 season, didn't get a head coaching job. He will not get a head coaching job. That's confirmed now because there are no head coaching spots left.
Yeah.
One of his big destinations that he was thinking about ending up was Atlanta. It was very much in the loo that it was looking like he was going to end up there. At points, it seemed like almost likely that he would end up in Atlanta. That didn't end up working out. He would end up not getting a job anywhere, let alone from Atlanta. And now some news, I guess, has surfaced in these past couple days regarding why he may have not received that job. Um, the initial report was from ESPN. I'll read it out here. The reason Bill Belichick didn't get the Atlanta Falcons head coaching job was because Robert Kraft called owner Arthur Blank, telling him, quote, not to trust Bill. The report also includes the fact that Robert Kraft wanted to fire Bill Belichick after the 2022 season, but was talked out of it by his son, Jonathan. Then another quote that we have here by the source says, quote, asked whether Kraft had any motivation to keep Belichick off the sidelines. A source close to the coach said, if Bill goes on to have success and Tom already has success, then who does Kraft have to blame? It also mentions a bit about Bill Belichick's upcoming book, citing no one can tell a coach to refrain from calling a timeout with 30 seconds left in the Super Bowl and the opponent a yard away from victory. The system is Bill Belichick and was Bill Belichick. Um, and with all the stuff happening with the Patriots documentary, the
Yeah.
whole dynasty backlash that has surfaced in weeks past, then we
So
get this piece of information. What are your thoughts, Chandler, on the state of the Patriots franchise after Bill Belichick?
yeah, obviously, of the three, the least important, it will always be the owner. But throughout the course of how this is being handled, it seems as though every day I lose a little bit of respect for Kraft. And it sucks to say that because obviously, like there was a real chance that the team was going to move before he took over. It was very possible they were going to end up in stores in Connecticut, or outside stores. But at the same time, to actively sabotage your own greatest, not your own greatest coach of all time, the greatest coach of all time, for what we can only assume are petty squabbles, to the point of not only did he not get the Atlanta job, not only did he not make the top three for the Atlanta job, he didn't make the top three for any job. And that is baffling to me, I assume to you, and I assume to the greater football world, because obviously the greatest coach of all time should at the very least be seen by one team as a top three candidate. That's not that crazy to think. It's in a similar vein to how when Tom Brady was getting courted by some teams, and a lot of teams came out and said, no, we don't want him. He's too old. We don't want him. for whatever reason. I am on record having said this in congruence with other people that when you have somebody who has exemplified so much greatness, you should want to be able to learn whatever you can from that person. And at the very least, you can do that by having a second interview. That's not that much to ask. And it didn't happen. And I think a large part of that is because of Kraft's influence in the NFL and among the owners. And through that kind of manipulation, I have lost a little bit of respect for Robert Kraft.
And I feel like every time, Chandler, that we pull away from this whole controversy surrounding Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft and their supposed feud behind the scenes, we just lead back into it once again. Uh,
Right.
Look all the way back to when Bill Belichick initially lost the job. Rumors swirling about like, what the hell is Kraft doing? Blah, blah, blah. The whole aftermath of that finally calms down. And then we get the Patriots Dynasty documentary, spikes it all the way back up. We have basically a tirade on Bill Belichick throughout the whole thing, subtle jabs, direct jabs, back and forth between those two. We finally reach a point now. Okay, Patriots go through free agency. They go through leading up to the NFL draft. Seems like they're finally going to have the focus back on what the actual franchise current day is offering rather than the squirrels of the past. But no, once again, we get another leak of big information coming out detailing this feud between Belichick and Kraft, and it just continues to paint the Patriots an ugly picture. And it sucks because you and I both know, everybody in New England knows how much respect everybody should have for Bill Belichick and how
And
he's, yeah, non-questionably the greatest coach of all time. Uh, Kraft should also reflect that same respect.
I
In a lot
agree.
of senses, we feel that he does have that respect, and then stuff like this pops up, and we're just like, all right, bro, like, what are we even detailing on right now? Like, why are we going in circles around this subject? It just doesn't make sense to me a lot of the time.
Yep. And you know it's going to be really fascinating. A report that came, that's not a report, it's a confirmation thing that's going to happen after you watch your live stream with the At the Pylon podcast on Thursday. Maybe go back and rewatch the Pat McAfee show because Bill Belichick is going to be the co-host.
Yeah,
Thing their draft specular, whatever they call it, draft spectacular. Um, and Belichick is probably too smart to dispel any kind of information about that. But you know, I assume there's going to be a little bit of prying, and maybe he's at the point where he just doesn't care because he's removed from the situation. We might get a couple of really cool sound clips to that might even eclipse anything that the Patriots do in the draft, unless they draft JJ McCarthy. That would not eclipse that because you guys will see you guys will hear heinous words come out of my mouth on the live stream that would get through the censor though.
yeah. As Chandler said, we're going to be live streaming next Thursday, in honor of the NFL draft. So make sure to tune in for that.
Yeah,
We'll kick off the stream as soon as the draft begins. I think it's at 8 p.m. So
yeah.
we'll be there.
I will be joining around
Oh yeah,
9:50 because I have a rehearsal before that. But yes,
Chandler will be on after his rehearsal wraps, but I will be there for what will probably feature the Patriots live pick at 3,
yeah. I think
unless
that'll
God forbid
probably
they
be
trade
around
down.
8:50. I would assume is when the pick will happen. I would guess.
Mm-hmm.
But getting these prognostications, I'll be texting him throughout the thing, telling him things to say on my behalf. So you know, I'll still be there. I'll still be tuning in.
For sure. And make sure to follow us on Instagram at.the.pylon to check that live. In speaking about the draft, Chandler, I think we'll move on to the swirl of rumors that have surrounded that, because that's really what we want to draw our focus on leading up to what is probably the biggest draft in the New England Patriots history in at least the past 25 years.
I think it
So
has to be just the best, the most important, and it has
it's
to be also.
it's a definable moment for sure, especially for Gerard Mayo, Elliott Wolf, everybody at the helm for the Patriots. And we'll start off, Chandler, with discussing what you kind of have viewed as the main centerpiece of what those rumors have been, and that's JJ McCarthy. We've seen his draft stock fluctuate tremendously from the very beginning of these kind of draft pools and stuff like that. It was kind of like even not even assumed that he would be a guaranteed first round talent. Now we're leading into the fact that he is contending for top 3, maybe even top 2 quarterback in the draft, and thus a top 2 pick in the NFL draft because those top three teams, as we've detailed, all very QB needy. When it comes to the Patriots, we've heard from Elliott Wolf about the fact that he's been pushing to bag JJ McCarthy. He seems to be a very big advocate of wanting to draft him at 3. We've also seen interest from teams like the Minnesota Vikings, who would need to trade up. New York Giants have also expressed interest in McCarthy. And then the Washington Commanders, who sit one pick above the Pats, have also expressed heavy levels of interest in the Michigan State alum at this point. Yeah, just Michigan. What am I saying? Anyway, the big story out of it is, do you think the Patriots, well, we both know our answer is that we don't want the Patriots to pull the trigger, but do you think there's an actual chance that we do pull the trigger on JJ McCarthy at 3?
I mean, there has to be, and I haven't gone back to look at my mock draft number one that I made, but I am like 98% sure that I'm on record saying that he will shoot up the draft board and be considered a top 10 quarterback. But even I didn't see this. This is crazy. This is delusional. But the scary thing is, it's very feasible. It's very possible. I wouldn't be stunned if the Patriots decide to pick the fourth best quarterback, having picked number 3. And depending on, I'm very clearly in the camp that it goes Drake May, Caleb Williams. If you want to switch the two, I'm not mad at it, but I personally do have Drake May over him. Then it's Jaden Daniels, and then it's about, I don't know, 8 miles, and then JJ McCarthy. If you take JJ McCarthy over Jaden Daniels, I will be mad. If you take Jaden Daniels, or if you take JJ McCarthy over Drake May, I will throw a chair at my computer. It will, you will watch me have a meltdown. It will be very bad. The damages here at UMass will be covered by my tuition, hopefully. It's going to be nuclear Armageddon if that happens. And the scary thing is it could happen. If you end up trading back because somebody was going to give you a king's ransom and you're taking him out, I'm starting to try to rationalize it to myself. This is the delusional land we must live in. If you trade back and then take him at, say, 11, if you trade with Minnesota, if they are going to give you 3 first-round picks or 2 first-round picks and Justin Jefferson, if something like that can happen, okay, fine. But if you pick him at 3, I will commit a crime. I don't know what crime, but it will be a crime.
Let me just say the structured drafts trade that you had in your mock draft in our last mock draft episode. If you haven't already seen it, make sure to go check it out. That trade is what I would accept for the number 3 overall pick. That to me seems logical. Outside of that, the Patriots have to lock in at Drake May or Jaden Daniels at 3, whoever falls to you. If we pull the trigger on JJ McCarthy at 3, I'm going to go absurd as well. If we trade back for McCarthy and we get McCarthy at like 11, maybe that's not so bad, you know? Because
I don't think he falls to 11 if we're being honest at this point, unless maybe I've seen some rumblings that defensive tackles are going to start shooting up the board, which is really random. But all of my lock of like Jared Verse being a late pick, Byron Murphy II being locked with the Dolphins, that might not even happen because it's starting to seem like he could be a top 15 pick, which then might move other people up, other people down. This weekend, I'm going to do a deep dive in. You guys now know what I think should happen. I'm going to do a deep dive into what I think is going to happen and hopefully get everything correct. Not actually, but yeah.
Yeah, we're excited for that. But regardless, I guess one big point to hit on here is the Patriots holds, I guess, leverage in the sense that they do have that number 3 overall pick. And there are a lot of QB needy teams below them. Like you said, Vikings, you brought up the Raiders specifically in your mock draft, which is a great point. You can even consider the Giants, even though many think that they're going to hold on to Daniel Jones for one more year. Still a very likely team that would draft a quarterback and put in the position to do so. You got the Rams, who are all the way down the draft board at this rate, but still somewhat of a quarterback needy team. The list goes on. What we've heard from the Patriots in the sense of what they have at 3 is that opening up at the beginning of the offseason. They were like, we're going to read offers. We're going to see what comes our way.
as they
Nothing
should.
is off the table,
Yeah,
which, as you should, like you said, yes, always consider those options. Most recently, press conferences with Elliott Wolf has suggested that the Patriots aren't getting a haul for the number 3 pick. Nobody's really coughing up that big bag that they were supposedly searching for that number 3 overall pick. So it's seeming as we get closer and closer like they're going to hang on to it at number 3. So as that becomes more of a reality, the questions surrounding JJ McCarthy heat up. Because like you said, even though you said that you wouldn't be as mad if they pick Jaden Daniels over JJ McCarthy as you would Drake May, of course,
yeah.
I would still be probably livid if they
Oh yeah,
passed up on
I'll be
Daniels.
very upset.
Yeah. So like, McCarthy, no flack on McCarthy. I mean, good for him that his draft stock has propelled up so much. I mean, he has the PR team of a god at this rate.
Yeah.
But regardless, it's not all there. And to me, it just shows blinking lights of Mac Jones 2.0, except at this time, instead of getting Mac Jones at 15, you're getting slightly more athletic Mac Jones at number 3.
AKA Trey Lance. They're just doing the Trey Lance. That's the direct comparison that I'm making in my brain.
And that's a smart comparison as well.
Quarterback who didn't throw the ball a lot, who won a lot, and is mobile, potentially can't read a defense effectively just based on reps. Hasn't shown film of being a consistent, even top tier college football quarterback, which is weird to say because he did win a national championship and looked fairly good doing it. But I believe that he did that off of the backs of an incredible running game with Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards.
Mhm.
But it's so silly to me that there is a non-zero chance, and I would even say like, if I were to throw a number, I'd say it's a 15 to 20% chance that we make the active decision to finish fourth in a 3-horse race. There are 4 quarterbacks here, or there are 3 quarterbacks that should be considered. We're going to take the one that shouldn't even be in our radar.
Yeah, and hopefully all we can do at this rate, Chandler, is just hope that the
Yeah.
Patriots don't get McCarthy.
And
We've
I do need to see CYA right now. Of course, I've been fairly decent with my predictions about quarterbacks and players in the past few years, but at the same time, we don't really know anything. One of the most important things for draft prospects and this concept in general is getting to know them as people. We don't have the avenue to truly do that. We don't know his drive. We don't know the defining traits of him as a person. We can only go off of what we see and what we hear. He could be the perfect interview. He could be the perfect work ethic, and he is young. So that would give him the avenue to be able to have that kind of success. But the tape doesn't show it, and that's all we can talk about. The tape tends to not lie, and I don't think it's lying here.
That's a great point to bring up, honestly, because as sports journalists, a lot of the times you pass up on those, I guess, behind the scenes factors that go into drafting a guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Nobody talks about them. That's an issue. That's one of the big issues with like the draft rule because everyone can say, and I fall into this trap sometimes. I try my best not to, but everyone can say, oh yeah, this person could be really good. Here's why they could be really good, without talking about why they might not be good. Be that an on the field thing, because obviously every person who was picked in the first round is picked in the first round because they have either all pro or future Hall of Fame potential. Like if they were to really have everything go right, they could be one of the best players in the league at any given point.
mhm.
We don't see the other things that we may think about. Oh, so and so is falling. Maybe they're a bad person. Maybe they don't have a work ethic. Maybe they don't interview well, or vice versa. Somebody like obviously Tom Brady is the exception to every rule, but somebody who has an ungodly work ethic and an incredible brain that may not show that in physical tools, which is what is the most important thing in the draft. As I talk about the RAS score every 5 seconds. But all of this to say that we don't really know. JJ McCarthy could become one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league within the next 2 years, and he could be a multiple time all pro quarterback. And I will sit here, and if he's wearing a Patriots jersey, I will be cheering louder than everybody else. Having said that, I cannot in good conscience sit here and act as if I think that he is going to be a good quarterback. I have to state my opinions. That is what we're here to do. I would still be very frustrated. And hopefully it's like a Kristaps Porzingis thing for those of us who remember back in 2016 or 2017 when he got drafted. 2015, one of those years when he got drafted and everybody had a meltdown. Everyone was claiming, who's this Pingus? And then he ended up being an excellent player and is a really key part to what hopefully is going to be I'm knocking on wood as I say this, a Celtics championship run this year. Very talented. Yeah, exactly. I know. But hopefully, whoever we draft, if we have that kind of meltdown Armageddon situation, ends up being really good. You know who the best example of that in football is, and I don't know why you use Kristaps Porzingis when there is this great example. J.J. Watt. The Texans fans had conniptions when they drafted J.J. Watt, and then he ended up being one of probably the top 7 defensive players of all time. So all this to say, we don't really know what we're talking about at the end of the day because we can't. I do all the work that I can to see these things and then dispel them across to all of you. This is my CYA. I stand on business though.
W. Regardless, I guess, because on one hand, you flip to the side of what you were originally saying about, you don't see those key, I guess, green flags behind the scenes of what you might get from an interview or something like that behind the scenes. We're only getting the product on the fields, but at the same time, you also a lot of times hear about draft stock falling because of those personal issues behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, those bad interviews, those bad interactions are what drag a player down, but the good ones aren't exactly what propel them up. So in
Yep.
this case, a guy like JJ McCarthy could have really great behind the scenes, uh, I guess, methods, whether it's
Right.
interviewing or whatever it is, meetings, they could all go very well. And then on the other hand, you have Harbaugh backing him to the grave, saying he's the
That's huge.
best quarterback in the draft.
He's
He said
got
that since day one.
NFL caliber, both quarterbacks and coaches, having worked with him for the past his entire football career because he was at IMG, which is essentially a sports high school where the exclusive goal is to get you to be the best athlete you can possibly be mentally and physically. So it's very possible that he has just been inside of this world of winning and this world of development for so long that he could just be excellent, and for some reason they didn't show it. But when you don't show something, it tends to be because you don't have it. That's a rule of thumb.
Yeah, and I guess kind of transitioning out of the draft, Chandler, because as we said, next week we're gonna present our final mock drafts. Make sure to
Right.
tune in next week before the draft itself, and then we're gonna have live reactions to the NFL draft on Thursday night. Make sure to stay tuned for those on our Instagram at @the.pylon. But our last kind of subject to hit on, Chandler, kind of has to do with the draft, kind of
Mm-hmm.
doesn't.
I think we haven't talked about this, but I think I know where you're going.
It's Brandon Ayuk.
Oh,
What
that's
do you
not where I thought you were going to go. I have one more thing after that then.
Okay, so we'll go to your thing after. I was thinking of Brandon Ayuk.
Sure.
Um, the fireworks of rumors, at least in his words, as to what has been happening around him. Clearly, he's been saying that he's been unhappy with the 49ers. He unfollowed the 49ers on Instagram. We don't really know how much weight that even holds nowadays. Probably none. It could even be used as just a contract kind of thing at this rate. A ploy to kind of raise up rights for your contract because nowadays unfollowing on social media has such a weight to it, which is insane. But regardless, people are considering whether or not the Patriots are going to take a stab at trading for Brandon Ayuk. He himself said Brandon Ayuk's latest IG post has the caption of quote, "Brother said we got 6 days and it's fireworks." And what is in 6 days? The NFL draft. So a draft day trade is possible, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you think the Patriots have any shot at landing Brandon Ayuk?
I think they do. They have the capital to do so. They have pick 34, which is probably what it would be something related to. Um, I think the bigger question is, do you want to trade for Brandon Ayuk? And it's a weird thing to say because obviously he is an excellent wide receiver that would immediately be the best wide receiver on this team. He is not especially old to my knowledge. He should be probably look this up as I talk,
I think
probably
he's upper
25.
20s.
I think he's probably 25, 26 because he was 2019 draft, I believe. So he's approaching a next contract, though, which is another thing to talk about.
He's
Though we do have
26.
26, yeah, we do have oodles of money. But the question is, in such a deep wide receiver draft, it makes sense that the 49ers would be like, hey, we'll trade you Brandon Ayuk for pick 34, and then we'll go out and get Lad McConkey. He's the one that I keep seeing roughly around that range,
Hmm.
that kind of 25 to 35 range. Could be Xavier Worthy, could be a bunch of other people that I could keep going. But this is such a deep class that do you want to trade for somebody who is known to be good, obviously, but you have less control over their contract for the next upcoming years, and you have less of a window of building that rapport with you. I think it makes a lot of sense to get the quarterback, the wide receiver, the tackle. It's such a basic way of thinking about how this works. And people online are like trying to roast Patriots fans, be like, "Oh yeah, me when I come up with another Patriots mock draft and it goes quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle." There's a reason that it makes sense. There's a reason
Yeah.
that everyone it's because it makes sense.
Hmm.
It's like in a shared interest of ours. It's like in WWE when they're like, we're gonna swerve you now. You don't need to because you told a good story and it makes sense.
Yeah,
Let the story pay off. Let the roster composition that you've made, let that pay off. It makes too much sense.
exactly. And to that point, you think about it because you bring up the point of you need the quarterback, you need the wide receiver, you need the tackle. Yes. The Patriots on paper right now, I wouldn't say they have any of those.
I agree.
So getting a guy like Ayuk, and like you said, giving up 34 is likely. But if you can canoodle away to not give up 34,
That
whether
would be
it be a
cool.
second next year or a boatload of picks
I'm
later
game
in
for
the
that.
draft, I'd be down for that. And
That would be
especially
something
considering
like
how things are going with the 49ers, they have no money to spend
true.
whatsoever. They've already had to cut ties with some key players on their squad for the sole fact that they just don't have the money to keep them. So a guy like Ayuk, who could be demanding big money, um, could potentially see him end up in New England, especially if it works out and you get a package where you get to keep 34. Because then at 34, you can either trade back a little bit because, yeah, you don't need as elite of a wide receiver now because you have Ayuk. And then you can get a couple more picks so you can get a better tackle and still get a wide receiver. Or you could just keep 34 and draft another great wide receiver and go down your original plan and get a tackle in the third round. To me, it doesn't matter. But on the flip side, you have the Patriots coming out and saying, we have talented guys on our offense. This is an NFL offense. People are underestimating our offense. Stop talking. Stop.
Yeah.
Because why are you bringing forth this idea that our offense is suddenly going to be magical
Or
when the fact of the matter is they sucked so bad last year. Were there good pieces of our offense last year? Yeah.
sure.
Hunter Henry was good. Kendrick Bourne was good. Uh, Pop Douglas was pretty good. Like,
Mhm.
besides that, and none of those guys are premium top quality guys.
No.
You cannot sell them as this is our NFL offense. We're set. You can't do that. So in saying that, there's also the side of the coin that's like, are we even going to spend and try and get a guy like Ayuk? Because Elliot Wolf is trying to sell to the public that we already have our offense set of star-studded talent, quote unquote. Um, and regardless of how much people would want to push for the front office to finally crack that pressure and get a guy like Ayuk and finally sign that big name that we thought, and I think you have even said you don't even know if the Patriots are ever going to get a wide receiver one ever again. Like that pressure is there, but will they even pull the trigger? I don't even know. It's
I
just
do
so
think
set
that
in their ways.
I think that I have the trade. I just very quickly crafted something. The 49ers have 10 picks in this draft, which is a sizable amount. I think the trade that makes sense, the one that I would do, is Ayuk and pick 215, which is a sixth round pick, for a 2025 second and pick 103, which is our first of our fourth rounders. Um, I think that makes a pretty good deal of sense to me. But a similar trade might occur. I think it would definitely have to be a little bit more. But the thing that I would like to very quickly talk about, because it's only recently gaining steam, AJ Brown. Have you
I've
heard
heard
about
about
the
that
AJ Brown
too.
trade
I
reports?
have. But
What do you think?
I didn't bring him up because I was scrolling through Twitter. I'm like, is there anything I missed? And I saw AJ Brown, AJ Brown, AJ Brown. I'm like, oh, this is going nowhere. Like, this is just like throwing darts at a wall.
And then this
So I just
morning,
passed on it.
he changed. I don't know if it was last night or this morning, but he changed his Instagram profile to a picture of Tom Brady
I
in
saw
a
that.
Patriots jersey, and he is on record, and it's devastating to us Patriots fans. But he's on record saying that he cried when the Patriots didn't take him because he was a Patriots fan growing up. Um,
I just say, why now? Why does he want to come now?
I mean, I don't like Philadelphia. I was going to say I like Philadelphia. I don't like Philadelphia actually, but they are objectively a very good team, but a good team that is kind of on the decline, very potentially, from what I can gather. And we're seeing with all of our star wide receivers in the league right now, they're just saying, "I want out. Goodbye." We saw it with Diggs, and I think we might see it with AJ Brown. And now that is a real wide receiver one that you can build quarterback confidence around. And that is one that I'd be like, I'll give up 34 for him. I'll give up 34 and 103 for him.
I do that
Please.
too.
I would do it in a heartbeat. I would not give up a 2025 first, though. If that's what they
No.
ask for, I'm not doing that.
Would you give up this year's second and next year's second?
Sure.
Yeah.
I actually,
I don't know. That's where I might
this,
draw the line.
I would give up this year's second, next year's second for him and a
There
fifth,
next.
a fifth this year. Um, Based on the way
So
that
you can
our
trade up, maybe.
not even necessarily, just based on the way that our cap situation is, we clear a ton of cap after this year. So if we can have another player on a fifth year contract or fifth round contract that if they pan out, awesome. If they don't, so be it. But you're giving yourself another chance to have a player of low contract for an extended period of time, so that you can fill your roster with substantial free agents next year. So I would need to get a little bit like it's purely a numbers thing about people at certain contract points, but value wise, I would definitely do a two and a two for AJ Brown. Would love for that to happen.
I think I would do a two and a three, a two
Okay.
this year and a three next year. I don't know if I'd do that two and a two. I mean, maybe if everything falls right, maybe, but like, ooh, I don't like a two and a two is a lot for me, especially 34 this year. That's
Mhm.
basically a first round pick.
Hey, if it's Drake May, and if we have Drake May, and that's a question about whether he starts, I guess. But
Nah, I
if,
don't think he will. I don't think he should
yeah,
either.
I'm not sure either. I think that he will
Just
end
let
up.
Brissett run it for a year. We'll have throwback for a year. If we suck, whatever, we'll get another big good pick next year.
I think
And
he might
then
have the Herbert situation where he
mhm.
comes in during the middle of the season, or like a lot of that happens to a lot of people. But maybe he sits the whole year, and that's fine. I have no issues with that. But if you get AJ Brown and if Jacoby Brissett, who I still think is a serviceable enough quarterback, that second, obviously a second round pick is always good. I think that the second round pick is the most undervalued thing in maybe all of sports. It's probably not going to be 34. It'll probably be 45. Because I think that if you get AJ Brown and you have a successful draft, you can craft a legitimately fringe-ish playoff team if you do it really well. And if they think they're going to do it really well, then I think they should be fine trading a two and a two.
And the defense is all there too. You got to weigh that
Yeah.
into option too. Our defense is great. We brought back all the pieces. As we hit on last episode briefly, we brought back Kyle Duggar.
Yeah.
That's basically our whole defense molded back together.
Mhm.
So for this year, it's the question of who we taking at three. Is it going to be Brandon Ayuk? Is it going to be AJ Brown? Is it going to be no one in terms of who we're going to get as a wide receiver? And then after it's all said and done, from there on out, it's going to be discussing whether or not the coaches can pull this thing off and if firing Bill Belichick was indeed the wrong or right decision. All that, I guess, is this calm before the storm leading into next week, the NFL draft on Thursday. As we said, we'll have our final mock draft episode coming up sometime next week. Make sure to stay tuned for that. It's going to be very in depth. I'm going to make a slideshow this time, I
Oh
swear.
yeah.
Next time after that, you'll see us is on our Instagram page. Follow us at.the.pylon. We're going live on Instagram for the NFL draft Thursday, 8 p.m. Make sure to stay tuned for that. And then after that, it's just going to be basically analyzing every single pick from our draft week by week. And that'll take us pretty much all the way into OTAs. So believe it or not, guys, football season is coming back up sooner than
Oh
later.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
before you know it, we'll either be back to praising and singing the Patriots, or we'll be back to 4-13 territory once again. We'll just have to wait and see. But regardless, that'll do a wrap on this episode. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. We'll see you back here next week for some more mock drafts before the NFL draft.